Let me tell you something that can change your life today. Your breakthrough, your elevation, your increase won't come from watching what everyone else is doing. It's not in the scroll. It's not in the likes. It's not in the noise. Your breakthrough is hidden in your ability to focus. Owen Yourself. Let me say it louder for the people in the back. You will never master what you refuse to study. And the first subject you must study is woe you. You see, God didn't make a mistake when he made you. He didn't put greatness in everyone else and skip you. But if you spend all your time comparing, copying, and complaining, you will miss what he actually gave you because you're too distracted looking at what he gave someone else. You can't focus on what you don't recognize. That's where most people go wrong from the beginning. They're trying to build success on top of confusion. They're trying to create a future on top of an unstable identity. And let me tell you right now, there is no such thing as sustainable wealth, lasting peace, or divine power without first understanding who you are. You cannot master what you have not yet identified. That's why so many people are exhausted, running in circles, burned out, chasing goals that were never theirs to begin with. You can't be focused if your foundation is fractured, and your foundation is your identity. The first thing God gave Adam in the garden was not work. It was identity. He named him. He gave him dominion. Before he gave him an assignment, he gave him authority. Before he gave him a job, he gave him clarity. And you're out here trying to skip the steps. You're trying to run your business, build your brand. They see the strength of the hook without ever getting clear on who you and why you're here. That's backwards. That's words. That's why you feel stuck, because the world trained you to focus on goals without first discovering your gift. And your goals will crush you if they are not built on a clear understanding of your God-given identity. You see, there's a difference between an image and identity. Most people are chasing image. They want to look the part. They want the perception. They want the applause, the aesthetic, the approval. But when the storms come, and they will come, image won't save you. Image doesn't heal your heart. Image doesn't give you direction. Image is external. Identity is internal. And identity is spiritual. You've got to go deeper than the surface to find out who you really are. Because when you know who you are, you stop needing validation from people who don't even know themselves. Let me break this down further. Identity is not about what you do, it's about who you are becoming. It's not about your title, your salary, or your followers. Those things can be taken away in a moment. Identity is about what remains when everything else is stripped away, when the business fails, when the relationship breaks, when the money runs low. Who are you then? If you don't know, then it's time to stop everything and go back to the source. You've got to return to the creator to understand the creation. You weren't made to wander. You were made to walk in purpose. But you can't walk in purpose if you don't even recognize the person in the mirror. And let me be real, it's not always easy to find clarity, because clarity doesn't come through comfort. It comes through conflict. Sometimes God has to strip you of everything you thought was important so you can finally see what really is. Sometimes you have to lose your plan so you can find your purpose. That's why the focus on yourself is so powerful, because the more you look inward with honesty, the more you begin to uncover the truth that has been buried under fear, people pleasing, and distractions. You've been living under labels people put on: yug, failure, too slow, not enough. They see the strength of the too much, never going to make it. But those labels don't define you unless you agree with them. And that's why your clarity begins with identity, because once you stop agreeing with the lies, you can start living in the truth. They see the strength of and the truth is, you are already equipped, you're already anointed for the assignment. You've got to believe it. You've got to internalize it. You've got to own it, because nothing around you will change until you change what's going on inside you. This is what it means to focus on yourself. It's not selfish. It's sacred. It's you saying, before I lead anyone else, I've got to lead myself. Before I grow a business, I've got to grow a backbone. Before I speak to a crowd, I've got to speak life to myself. You are the first audience that matters. And until you learn to be loyal to who you truly are, you'll always be tempted to perform for people who don't even matter in the long run. So stop outsourcing your identity. Stop waiting for a coach, a mentor, a spouse, or a crowd to tell you who you are. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And it starts with getting still, getting quiet, and getting honest. What are your values? What are your convictions? What sets your soul on fire? What do you stand for when no one is watching? That's identity. That's the root of clarity. And only when you uncover that, will be able to focus fully, fiercely, and fearlessly on the vision you were born to bring to life. Comparison is the silent assassin of purpose. It doesn't come in loud. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It plants quiet seeds of doubt every time you see someone else doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, and doing it better, faster, louder, with more attention, more followers, more money. You look at them and begin to question your own value. You start thinking you're not good enough. Maybe you're too late. Maybe you missed your chance. But that's the trap. That's the poison. Because comparison doesn't measure accuracy, it magnifies insecurity. You weren't created to run their race, you weren't built for their battle, and you sure weren't designed to carry their calling. So why are you letting their progress dictate your peace? Why are you letting their highlight reel distort your reality? You don't know what it cost them to get there. You don't know the pain behind their pictures. You don't know the nights they cried, the times they almost quit, the deals they lost, or the compromises they made. And yet here you are trying to measure your journey against a snapshot of theirs. That's not focus. That's distraction in disguise. The more time you spend studying other people's paths, the less time you're spending building your own. The more energy you spend trying to mimic what someone else is doing, the further you drift from the unique blueprint that was given to you. You weren't created to be a duplicate. You were handcrafted to be distinct. God doesn't do copy-paste. He does custom builds. But you'll never walk in your custom calling. You keep measuring it by mass-produced standards. Comparison makes you doubt your own timing. It convinces you that if you're not where someone else is by a certain age or stage, then you're failing. That's a lie. Purpose has no expiration date. Destiny doesn't care about your age. Some people bloom at 20, some at 40, some at 65. The question is not how fast you get there. The question is, are you becoming who you were created to be while you're on the way? But when you're busy looking sideways, you lose the ability to look forward. You get distracted, discouraged, and delayed. And for what? For the illusion that someone else is winning and you're not. Success is not a limited resource. Their win is not your loss. And let's be real, comparison doesn't just rob your joy, it kills your creativity. You start second-guessing your voice. You dilute your ideas. You hesitate when you should be executing. You abandon your authenticity to fit into a version of success that doesn't even align with your purpose. And then you wonder why you feel empty when you finally make it. It's because you didn't make your dream happen. You chase someone else's. That's why focusing on yourself is so powerful. When you commit to your own growth, when you stop looking for permission to be who you already are, something shifts. You begin to move with clarity, with confidence. You stop chasing applause and start chasing alignment. You stop needing validation and start walking in vision. And that's when things begin to flow, not because everything outside of you changed, but because everything inside of you came into focus. Comparison is rooted in scarcity. It believes there's not enough room for everyone to win, but focus is routed in abundance. It believes your win doesn't threaten mine and mine doesn't threaten yours. In fact, the more I stay in my lane, the more I can inspire others to do the same. You want to be powerful. Stay focused on your assignment. Want to be impactful. Stay focused on your development. You don't need to be everywhere doing everything. You just need to be exactly where you are, doing what you're called to do, with excellence, with integrity, and with vision. Every minute you spend comparing is a minute stolen from creating. Every ounce of energy used to envy someone else's blessing is energy you could be using to cultivate your own. You don't have time to be distracted. Your destiny is too important. Your calling is too critical. Your legacy is too valuable. You've got gifts that are still dormant because you've been busy trying to perfect someone else's style. But God didn't call you to be them. He called you to be you freely and unapologetically. And the truth is, they see the strength of you're already equipped, you're already you're already qualified for the assignment with your name on it. You don't need to be better than them. You need to be bolder in being you. Focus cancels comparison. Focus tells your mind, we're not doing that anymore. Focus says, I don't have time to monitor their lane. I'm building a highway of my own. Focus is freedom, not just from distraction, but from the deception that you're not enough. Because once you lock in on your own path, once you decide that your growth matters more than their applause, you'll realize that the only competition that ever really existed was between who you are and who you were created to become. Don't tell me you want if you're not willing to show me what you every day. Desire without discipline is deception. People love to talk about their goals, their dreams, the future they envision, but the truth is your habits are the real evidence of what you believe is possible. You can talk all day about success, but if your daily routine doesn't reflect that vision, then what you have is fantasy, not faith. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. If your habits are not aligned with your divine assignment, your life will always be out of sync with your potential. The secret to success isn't in some far off place. It's in the structure of your day. The way you start your morning, the way you manage your time, the way you treat your body, your mind, and your spirit, all of it is either building your future or breaking it. You are always in the process of becoming something. The question is, are your habits making you better or bitter, stronger or stagnant, focused or fragile? Your habits are not just actions. They are declarations. They reveal what you prioritize. They show what you're committed to, no matter what you say out loud. People don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they're not consistent. You can have the greatest vision in the world, but if you don't have the discipline to back it up with action, it will remain an idea that never touches reality. Discipline is how you tell God you're serious. Discipline is how you show the world that you're not waiting to feel motivated, you're moving in purpose. Discipline doesn't ask for comfort. It asks for commitment. It says, They strengthen when I don't feel like it. I'll still show up. Even when it's hard, I'll keep going. Even when no one is clapping, I'll keep building. Your habits predict your future more than your intentions ever will. If you want to know what your life will look like 5 years from now, look at what you do with your time every day. Your future is not a mystery. It's a mirror. It reflects back the decisions you make over and over again. And here's the truth. Most people avoiding success is boring before it's beautiful. The grind isn't always glamorous. The discipline isn't always Instagram worthy. Sometimes it looks like early mornings, late nights, quiet sacrifices, and unseen effort. But what you do in private eventually shows up in public. Most people are waiting for inspiration, but champions are built on repetition. It's not about feeling like it. They see the strength of it. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to be done no matter. You want financial breakthrough? What are your financial habits? You want a healthy body? What's on your plate and what's your routine? You want spiritual growth. How often are you in the Word, in stillness? You want stronger relationships. What are you sowing into them daily? Don't ask for harvest if you're not willing to cultivate. Don't expect overflow when you neglect order. Discipline isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's how you train yourself to carry the weight of the blessing you've been asking for. Because let me tell you, elevation without preparation is a setup for collapse. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your habits. And if you're not focused on mastering the basics, don't expect to handle the breakthroughs. The blessing will feel like a burden if you haven't built the capacity to sustain it. Discipline builds capacity. It builds resilience. It makes you stronger than your excuses and bolder than your fears. Some people think discipline means restriction, but that's a lie. Discipline is freedom. Discipline gives you the ability to say no to what doesn't serve you so you can say yes to what aligns with your destiny. They see the strength is how you protect your peace, your energy, your calling. It's how you cut through the noise and stay locked in on your mission. You can't afford to be casual with your time, your focus, or your effort. Not when purpose is on the line. Casual discipline produces casual results. But when you become intentional, when you decide that nothing matters more than becoming who you were created to be, everything begins to shift. You don't need more talent, more luck, or more resources. You need a higher standard. You need to raise the bar on what you expect from yourself daily. And when you do that, when you see the strength, when you stop negotiating with your excuses and start living in alignment with your assignment, your habits will carry you into the future you've been praying for. Because see, the discipline isn't just something you do, it's something you become. It's who you are when no one is watching. It's how you honor the gift of another day. It's how you turn potential into progress and vision into victory. You cannot control the world, but you control your world. And the difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is simple. Ownership. Not blame, not guilt, not shame, but real, radical ownership. They see the strength to point fingers. It's easy to say they hurt me. They helped me. They didn't believe in me. That betrayal. And yes, all of that may be true. But truth without ownership is powerless. Because as long as you give someone else the responsibility for your life, you give them the power to decide your future. And that's not focus. That's bondage. Focusing on yourself means taking full responsibility for your choices, your reactions, your healing, your mindset, and your growth. Even when it's hard, especially when hard, it means no more excuses. No more waiting for someone to rescue. No more hoping life will just somehow get better while you sit back and stay the same. Growth is not accidental, it's intentional. It comes from the moment you decide. They see the strength of no one is coming to save me, but I'm not going to sit in defeat. I'm going to rise and build something what I've got. And don't misunderstand me. Ownership isn't about pretending you haven't been through some things. They see the strength, and it's not denial. It's not pretending everything is okay. It's about acknowledging the pain, the loss, the injustice, but refusing to let it define you. It's about saying, yes, I've been broken, but I won't stay broken. I'm going to take the pieces and build something stronger than what I had before. It's a mindset shift from victim to victor, from waiting to creating, from complaining to constructing, because complaining is easy. Creating takes courage. The truth is, when you start focus yourself at a higher level, you realize how much energy you were wasting on things outside of your control. You were trying to change people who didn't want to change, trying to force situations that were never meant for you, trying to convince people to see your worth when you hadn't even accepted it yourself. That's not power. That's exhaustion. That's spiritual burnout. Real power comes when you reclaim your focus, when you back all the scattered pieces of yourself and say, from this moment forward, I'm not waiting on anyone else to give me permission to grow. I give myself permission. There's a moment in every person's life where they have to decide what kind of story they want to write. And that moment begins with responsibility, not for everything that happened to you, but for how you respond to it. That's the power you always have. Your response is your responsibility. You can choose bitterness or you can choose breakthrough. You can choose blame or you can choose boldness. You can choose to stay the same Or you can choose to rise into the version of yourself that was always there, just buried beneath fear and delay. Every great transformation begins with a decision to stop waiting for ideal circumstances, a decision to stop replaying old pain, a decision to stop expecting the world to understand your value before you've fully walked in it yourself. Because ownership is a form of self-love. It says, I value my future enough to stop sabotaging it with old thinking. I believe in my potential enough to stop hiding behind excuses. I trust the God in me enough to take the first step even when I don't know how the whole path will unfold. That's ownership. That's maturity. That's spiritual authority. You can't walk in authority while living in avoidance. You can't step into destiny while blaming everything and everyone around you. Yes, life hit you hard, but it didn't destroy you. You're still here. And as long as you're here, you still have power, power to choose, power to grow, power to forgive, go to let, power to rewrite the script. And that's what focusing on yourself really means. Not getting lost in yourself, but becoming selfish, but becoming sober-minded, becoming aware, becoming responsible for the thoughts you think, the words you speak, the energy you carry, and the actions you take. It means looking in the mirror with honesty and asking, where have I been giving away my power? Where have I been blaming when I could have been building? Where have I been passive when I needed to be present? That level of self-accountability is not for the faint of heart, but it's the doorway to every breakthrough you've been praying for, because God can't bless who you pretend to be. He can't multiply what you refuse to manage. But when you take ownership of your life, fully, fiercely, faithfully, you step into alignment with purpose in a way that no circumstance can stop. Most people are trying to their lives by fixing everything around them, changing their jobs, switching relationships, chasing new opportunities, but they never stop to deal with what's happening with them. The truth is, transformation doesn't begin in your surroundings. It begins in your mind. Your internal world creates your external reality. You can't build a strong, sustainable life on a broken mindset. You can't expect peace when your thoughts are chaotic. You can't expect clarity when your beliefs are built on confusion. That's why the real work, the hard work, the sacred work, is the renewing of your mind. Your mind is the steering wheel of your destiny. Where your thoughts go, your life will follow. You can't outwork a mindset that is sabotaging your progress. You can't out-hustle the lies you believe about yourself. That's why no matter how much you try, if you don't address the root, the fruit will always show up lacking. People think success is about strategies and secrets. They see the strength, but the truth is it's about alignment. It's about getting your beliefs in sync with your identity. You were never created to be mediocre, but if you keep thinking small, you will keep living beneath your potential. The thoughts you entertain are either building your future or breaking it down one day at a time. You wake up with doubt, and instead of confronting it, you nurse it. You walk through life rehearsing your limitations, repeating your fears. They see the strength of them, magnifying your mistakes and wondering why nothing is changing. Your mind is a garden, and whatever you plant will grow. If you plant fear, fear multiplies. If you plant insecurity, you'll reap hesitation. But if you begin to plant focus, purpose, identity, and vision, then clarity begins to bloom. Direction becomes stronger. Confidence becomes a natural byproduct. And let's be clear, this isn't about fake positivity. This isn't about standing in the mirror lying to yourself. This is about trial truth, the kind that says, I am not what happened to me. I am my past. I am not my mistakes. I am not what I said. I'm not what I feared. I am who I was created to be, and I choose to believe that on a soul level. That kind of thinking is disruptive. It shakes loose the chains of mediocrity. It disarms generational patterns. It breaks cycles that have kept families in bondage for years. But it starts with you deciding to take authority over your own mind. You don't need a new opportunity as much as you need a new outlook. Because two people can walk into the same room, face the same situation, and one sees defeat while the other sees possibility. The difference isn't the room, it's the mindset. One is trained to see problems. The other is trained to see purpose. That kind of mental conditioning doesn't happen by accident. It's intentional. You don't wake up with a warrior mindset. You build it one decision, one thought, one declaration at a time. You don't just guard your mind. You train it. You put it under discipline. You challenge every lie that comes to steal your identity. And it's not just about believing in yourself. It's about believing in the calling that's on your life. When you begin to truly understand that you were designed for something greater, you stop entertaining thoughts that don't support that vision. You start treating your mind like sacred ground, because it is. You don't allow just anything to live there. You don't allow gossip, fear, or shame to set up residence in a place designed for strategy, vision, clarity, and creativity. You start asking yourself, does this thought build me or break me? Does this belief help me grow or keep me stuck? And once you begin that process of mental renewal, everything starts to shift. Your decisions get sharper, your boundaries get stronger, your distractions become fewer, your confidence stops being based on external validation and starts being rooted in internal conviction. You don't move because of applause, you move because of purpose. You don't need 10 people to co-sign your calling, you know who you are, and that knowing becomes your foundation. That knowing becomes your fuel. They see the strength of that. That knowing becomes your compass, because when your mind is focused, your actions become intentional, your time becomes valuable, your energy becomes protected. You don't engage in every argument. You don't entertain every invitation. You don't chase everything that glitters. You move with strategy. You move with wisdom. You move with vision. And that's when doors begin to open, not because you forced them open, but because you aligned your thoughts with the version of you that was always meant to walk through them. Most people don't realize that distractions aren't just interruptions. They're silent assassins of destiny. They don't show up with sirens or red flags. They show up disguised as good opportunities, interesting conversations, temporary pleasures, or even relationships that seem helpful but are really pulling you off course. When you're not focused on yourself, on your assignment, on your growth, you become vulnerable to everything that looks appealing but isn't aligned. And the price for distraction is always delay. Every time you allow something or someone to pull you out of purpose, you are postponing the very thing you were created to do. Distractions don't always look like chaos. Sometimes they look like comfort, like staying in a circle that feels good but doesn't challenge you, like repeating routines that keep busy but not productive, like giving your time to things that are urgent but not important. You can spend your entire life responding to noise and never once hear your own voice. Never once stop to ask, what is my path? What is my assignment? What am I building? When you don't define your focus, the world will define your distractions. And most people never take back control of that conversation. You weren't created to be available to everything. You were created to be assigned to something. And when you understand that your no becomes just as powerful as your highs, you stop needing to explain your boundaries. You stop apologizing for protecting your energy. You stop feeling guilty for removing yourself from circles where your purpose is being drained instead of developed. Focus isn't selfish. Focus is sacred. It's how you say, I value what I've given too much to waste it on things that don't serve the vision. Some of you are frustrated because you feel like your life isn't moving. But the truth is, it's not that you're not capable. It's either that you're distracted. Your mind is on 100 different things. Your heart is in places it doesn't belong. Your time is scattered across people and situations that have no investment in your future. And you wonder why you feel stuck. Focus isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about eliminating the excess and zoning in on the essential. What is your essential? What is the thing that, if you gave it your full attention, would multiply everything else in your life? And let's be real, it's not always easy to stay focused when distractions are so accessible. In a world that thrives on noise, staying grounded requires intention. Every scroll, every ping, every unnecessary conversation is a pull. And each time you say yes to something meaningless, you're saying no to something meaningful. The enemy of destiny isn't always destruction, sometimes just distraction. Sometimes it's being too busy with things that don't matter, that you miss the one thing that does. You have to develop the discipline to say, I don't need to be everywhere, know everything, or respond to everyone. I need to be where I grow with what I'm called to and aligned with who I'm becoming. Focus requires clarity, and clarity doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from silence, from solitude, from those quiet moments when you unplug, step back and ask, what season am I in? What am I building right now? What am I believing for? You can't find your direction in distraction. You can't birth something great when your energy is split in 1,000 directions. Greatness requires focus. Destiny demands concentration. And that means cutting off anything that pulls you away from the work, the healing, the development, the building that you're supposed to be doing. There is power in presence, not just being in a place physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually locked in. When you're focused, you see what others miss. You recognize opportunities disguised as challenges. You feel the shift in the room. You hear the whisper of purpose in the noise of culture. You start making decisions from a place of vision, not from a place of fear or pressure. Focus sharpens you. It filters what you allow. It frees you from the chaos of comparison and calls you back to your lane. And when you commit to your lane, that's where acceleration happens. You have to protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Every dream, every breakthrough, every assignment you've been praying for is attached to your ability to stay consistent in the right direction. Not the most exciting direction, not the trendiest path, but the one that aligns with your calling. And that's why distraction is so dangerous. It always looks easier than focus. It always looks more fun, more convenient, more popular. But it never produces what you truly desire, because distraction will give you moments of relief, but only focus will give you momentum. One of the most transformative realizations a person can have is that healing is not a destination, it's a decision, a daily one. Not something that happens to you while life fixes itself, but something you step into with intention, ownership, and consistency. You don't stumble into healing. You choose it even when it hurts. You choose it even when the wound feels fresh. You choose it when forgiveness feels unfair and letting go feels like losing. They see the strength of the healing is the doorway to becoming. You cannot become all that you were created to be while dragging around the weight of what broke you. The problem is that most people want change without the cost. They want to feel better without doing better. They want peace without giving up the pain that became their identity. But pain is not your identity. It's an experience. And the moment you begin to separate who you are from what you've been through, that's the moment you begin to take your power back. That's the moment when focus becomes possible. They see the strength of, because as long as your attention is tied to your affliction, you won't have the energy to pursue transformation. You'll be too busy protecting the parts of you that were hurt instead of cultivating the parts of you that are ready to grow. They see when you start focusing on yourself in a real and honest way, you can no longer ignore the places that are unhealed, not condemn yourself, but to call yourself higher, to say, this is the version of me that survived, but now I'm ready for the version that thrives. Healing starts when you stop explaining your pain and start extracting wisdom from it. When you say, I didn't deserve what happened to me, but I refuse to let it rob me of what's next for me. That's when your past loses its grip. That's when you begin to reclaratory in your own mind, in your heart, in your soul. That you have to stop waiting for time to heal what you're unwilling to confront. Time doesn't wounds. Truth does. Intention does. The work does. And the work isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it means revisiting memories that you buried under success or business. Sometimes it means acknowledging how long you've carried a story that was never yours to begin with. Sometimes it means forgiving people who never apologized, but not because they deserve it, because you deserve freedom. Because you can't build your future while dragging the dead weight of yesterday. Healing doesn't mean you forget. It means you remember without reliving. It means the sting is gone even if the scar remains. It means you can talk about what happened without king every time you do. It means your joy is no longer held hostage by an old narrative. It means you've rewritten the script in your mind. And once the script changes, your choices change, your standards rise, your patterns shift. You stop attracting pain and start aligning with purpose. You stop repeating history and start creating destiny. That's the power of healing. It clears the path so focus can flourish. When you're unhealed, everything is a trigger. Every opportunity feels like pressure. Every relationship feels like a risk. Every correction feels like rejection. But when you've done the work, when you face the pain and process the truth, you become grounded. You become unshakable. You don't react, you respond. You don't hide, you show up. You don't expand. Healing expands your capacity to carry more responsibility, more joy, more vision, more love. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You got clear. They see the strength, the focus. And here's the truth that most people avoid. Healing is your responsibility, not because it was your fault, but because it's your future. The moment you make your healing someone else's job, you delay your freedom. They don't have to change for you to move forward. They don't have to apologize for you to evolve. They don't have to acknowledge for you to rebuild your life. That's on you. That's the part you get to own. Not from a place of guilt, but from a place of power. Because when you take responsibility for your healing, you take authority over your life. You weren't created to live in cycles of pain and survival. You were created to rise, to overcome, evolve. But that process begins within. It begins when you decide to stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you, to stop giving power to memories that can't help you, to stop living in reaction to what hurt you. They see the strength of and start living in response to what you're called to. And once you begin to walk that path of healing, you realize it's not just about feeling better. It's about becoming better. It's about stepping into your highest self. The self that isn't controlled by fear, the self that doesn't seek validation, the self that chooses peace over performance and purpose over pain. Most people go through life outward for validation, for applause, for recognition, believing that if someone else can see their value, maybe they'll finally believe in it themselves. But the truth is, external validation will never compensate for internal uncertainty. Until you learn to validate yourself, until you learn to approve of who you are, even when no one's clapping, you will always be a prisoner to people's opinions and reactions. And the danger of that is you'll start to live in performance mode, shaping your personality, your decisions, your dreams around what will get you the most approval instead of what aligns with your assignment. There comes a time when you have to stop seeking permission to be great. When you have to stop waiting for someone to tell you're enough, that you're capable, that you're worthy. That time is the moment you decide to trust the voice inside of you more than the noise around you. Because the voice inside, the one that knows you were created for something more, the one that whispers when everything else is loud, the one that doesn't need proof to believe, is the voice of purpose. And when you start listening to that voice, when you're honoring it, you begin to walk in a level of confidence that can't be shaken by opinions or rejection. You don't become confident by accident. Confidence is cultivated. Confidence is the byproduct of consistency. You do the work, you show up for yourself, you stay faithful to your growth, and over time you develop a self-trust that becomes unshakable. You begin to realize that your value is not based on how many followers you have, how many compliments you receive, or how many times people say your name. Your value is intrinsic. It was built in. And once you know that, you stop hustling for approval and start moving from identity, from a knowing that you were born for a reason, and that reason doesn't need an audience to be real. Most people are so distracted by what others are doing. They strengthen that they never take the time to become they're supposed to be. They're watching other people live, comparing timelines, measuring success by someone else's highlight reel, and wondering why they feel behind. But you're not behind. You're distracted. You're so focused on their lane that you've abandoned your own. But destiny doesn't come to distracted. It comes to the focused. It comes to the disciplined. It comes to the person who stops chasing comparison and starts chasing clarity. You don't need to move faster. You need to move clear. Clarity doesn't scream. It whispers. And you can't hear it in the chaos of everyone else's expectations. You hear it when you slow down long enough to ask yourself the hard questions. What do I really want? What am I willing to let go of to get there? Who do I need to become in order to carry what I'm asking for? You can't carry greatness with a fragile mindset. You can't walk in purpose with a need to be liked. You have to be willing to disappoint people in order to stay aligned with your assignment, because not everyone will understand your focus. Not everyone will applaud your healing. Not everyone will support your evolution. And that's okay. Growth is not about impressing people. It's about becoming who you were born to be. And sometimes that means leaving behind the version of you they were comfortable with, the version that played small, the version that was easy to control, the version that needed to be liked. But once you decide to focus on yourself, on your peace, on your potential, on your healing, you become dangerous in the best way. Dangerous to limitations, dangerous to fear. They see the strength of the dangerous to lie that said you had to be perfect to be powerful. You start owning your story, not the edited version, the real one, the one with the scars and the stumbles and the comebacks. And you tell it not for sympathy. They see the strength, but for strength, because when you speak from your truth, you give others permission to stop pretending. When you live from your truth, you give others a blueprint for authenticity. And there's nothing more magnetic than a person who knows who they're, what they carry and where they're going, not because someone else told them they're valuable, because they looked in the mirror, saw every flaw, every gift, every part of their journey and said, this is me is enough. And your focus on yourself is not selfish. It's necessary. It's how you grow. It's how you evolve. It's how you stay in alignment with what you were placed on this earth to do. Because when you're focused on becoming the best version of yourself, you're not just changing your life. You're changing the lives of everyone connected to you. You're shifting atmospheres, raising standards, and creating a ripple effect of freedom just by walking in truth. That's what happens when a person stops waiting to be chosen, starts choosing themselves daily, powerful, unapologetically.